Hi, this is Leland Chee, creative executive at Lucasfilm, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Zehr. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Jedi are being hunted.
I trained her. Let me be the one to bring her in.
And the Acolyte, Leslye, takes you on an adventure that lets you inside what she loves about Star Wars.
Our show takes place during a time period before George Lucas's prequels.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. I am your host, Dan Zehr, delighted to talk Star Wars with you. Ever since May of 2013, I want to help provide a positive, family-friendly, spoiler-free place to discuss this galaxy far, far away. Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop and hearing a discussion of Star Wars films, Disney Plus live action, animation, books, comics, collectibles, or Star Wars experiences at the Disney theme parks. I want to share that experience here on this podcast. Weekly interactive live video every Tuesday night, my website, special events, email newsletter, and more. Find out more and join our Star Wars community at coffeewithkenobi.com. Don't forget to sign up for our Coffee with Kenobi and Mouse Fan Travel Cruise on the Disney Wish June 16th to the 20th, 2025. Check out the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel at coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. On today's show, the Acolyte executive producer Leslye Headland joins me and members of the Star Wars fan community as we discuss and break down all about the exciting new series from Disney Plus and Lucasfilm, The Acolyte, set 100 years before the events of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
We will start with Keith and Kerwin, please.
Hi. So my question for you is, how did your work on previous shows such as Russian Doll influence your vision and direction for The Acolyte?
How did my work on other shows shape the vision? I mean, certainly Russian Doll, I'd say. That was an intricate story, obviously, with the Groundhog Day element, having to keep track of this storyline that sort of spiraled down into the heart of what the story was about. And I hope we've achieved sort of the Star Wars version of that with this storyline, with the Rashomon elements and seeing things from two different sides, both between Amandala's characters. Am I allowed to say that? I am. Okay, great. Sorry, you guys. I'm still unclear on what I'm allowed to talk about. So where was I? I was talking about, oh yes, the duality and kind of flipping back and forth between who's good and who's bad. This is a point of view of one character. This is the other point of view from another character. So that's I would say that prepared me really well for the story we ended up telling here.
Thank you.
Trisha, go ahead.
Hi, Trisha Barr for Fangirls Going Rogue podcast. You, in The Acolyte, you're using one of my favorite archetypes, the witch. A lot of current storytelling is challenging patriarchal tropes about witches. What do you want to bring to the cultural perspective of witches?
What do I want to bring to the cultural what of witches? Sorry.
The cultural perspective of witches.
Oh, perspective. Well, I think that they, of course they're witches, and that's an element that George and Dave created with the Clone Wars. But I do think that my version of it is more about a collective that utilizes the Force differently than the Jedi do and would rather be left alone so that they can develop their own way of manipulating it, use it, whether it's for good or bad is kind of left up to the audience's interpretation of them. So I guess that's how I would be challenging the perspective.
George, go ahead.
Hi, this is George and Josh Bate with the Hollow Files. Leslye, thank you so much. Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
It seems that one of the great tenets of working at Lucasfilm is collaboration with so many different departments, individuals, things like that. As you worked on The Acolyte, did you consult with other filmmakers who had directed and written other Star Wars stories? I know Rian Johnson had directed one of your first scripts and then obviously did The Last Jedi. I'm not sure if you consulted with him or other Star Wars writers, directors in crafting The Acolyte.
Well, it's interesting. I worked so closely with my designers, and all of them were very well versed in either their fandom for Star Wars or their understanding of it aesthetically. And also, they were very familiar with the aesthetic of the High Republic as well. So we did a lot of trial and error. We did a lot of collaboration. We did an enormous amount of presentations to each other so that all the departments were on the same page. So I do think that that really was the key to making a show like this one. You can't do it on your own. It's got to be between you and your team.
James, go ahead.
Hi, James Burns from Jedi News here. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. So my question for you is, there's a lot of people out there that have never ever read anything from the High Republic because they just, tune into the films and watch content on Disney Plus. So how would you pitch The Acolyte to them?
Oh, I would say pitching The Acolyte to people who are unfamiliar with the High Republic, I would say this is a fresh entry point. It could definitely elevate the show if you've had the experience of immersing yourself in that in beautiful world. But you certainly don't need to have read anything or know any references to it because we are taking place a bit closer to the prequels than the High Republic. So hopefully we have enough referencing of the High Republic, but we're not leaning on it narratively to support our story. I would like to think that our story stands on its own.
Gustavo?
Hi, Leslye. I'm Gustavo from Trial of the Force. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. My question also has to do with the High Republic. But before getting into the High Republic, Star Wars has, I think, been known a little bit for being slower to embrace diversity in it, not just its casting, but also in the stories it tells about diversity. Through the High Republic and that publishing effort, we have seen a lot of diversity with the characters that are finally introduced, be it with their races or their sexualities, but also the stories that we tell about them. With The Acolyte, how do you embrace that ethos that the High Republic publishing effort has done to not just bring in diverse characters, but also to tell diverse stories?
Well, I hope that if you're a Star Wars fan, my hope is that you will notice the different elements of Star Wars that we have brought, other Star Wars media that we have brought into The Acolyte. We're referencing the High Republic with the design of the robes, with including the character of Renester Grow. I think that we're definitely referencing Clone Wars when we explore the witches and the coven that Jodie Turner-Smith leads. So there's that. I think a lot of the fact that we're using practical elements, we're using real sets, that really, I think, lends itself to the original trilogy. And then where the Jedi are in their trajectory is very close to what ends up happening to them in The Phantom Menace. So hopefully we're merging a lot of those storylines to feel more diverse and hopefully exciting because of that.
Jason?
Hi, Leslye. Jason of This Dad Reads here. This is a big moment, like we've been saying, for the Star Wars book community. I just want to know, what message do you have for the High Republic book fans out there in anticipation of the release of The Acolyte?
Oh, I want to say I love you. Thank you for investing in a world and an era that I think is so new. And I definitely had that experience working on Acolyte. You're diving into something that isn't referencing the live action canon or the Skywalker saga. So you're willing to dive in at a particular entry point and enjoy the stories of the Jedi and what George created in a different context. So I would hope that you have a similar experience watching The Acolyte. Sorry. My mouth is really dry. Okay.
William, to you.
Thanks for chatting with us. William Devereaux from the Ion Canon podcast. George Lucas loved symmetry and parallels in Star Wars. In many ways, The Acolyte feels like a reflection of the Phantom Menace, kind of as you alluded to earlier, from the use of the Force to create life, to the Jedi testing process, eventually admitting an older child to be trained as a Jedi. And of course, twins are a Star Wars staple. I'm assuming this was intentional, and if so, how did you balance drawing the parallels to the Phantom Menace and other films without making it feel too similar?
It was difficult, for sure. You want to hit all the particular tropes that make something feel Star Wars. Like I said, those practical sets, the familial clashing, the struggle between master apprentice, father daughter, sister. All of those things, I think, are elements of George's stories. Ahsoka and Anakin, Luke and Anakin, Obi-Wan and Anakin. I was hoping to embody that particular, all of those particular tropes and elements. It was daunting. Hopefully, we've achieved it in a way that feels both fresh but also very reverent to what George has created.
Charlotte and Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi, Leslye. It's Charlotte and Caitlin from Sky Talkers. So great to talk with you today. You recently said in an interview that the episode The Wrong Jedi from the Clone Wars was a favorite and provided some inspiration to the Acolyte. What was it about that episode that stayed with you and maybe found its way into the Acolyte?
Well, there are two elements of that episode that I think show up in the Acolyte. First of all, the wrongful accusation of a character that they've committed a crime, a really horrible crime that they didn't do. So there's definitely that element. It's one of the things that starts the story off. And then the other thing that I love about that episode is Ahsoka's choice to leave the Order, which is something I hadn't really tuned into as like an option that someone could do. So I loved the idea that Osha has left the Order and sort of created a life for herself outside of that identity. So those were the two things from that episode that I was extremely inspired by.
Mark, go ahead.
Hello, Leslye. You work closely with Neil Scanlon and the Critics Cantina team at Pinewood to create all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Oh, absolutely. Neil embraced me immediately, which I was so grateful for. He was very supportive of my ideas and my requests. He does so much. When you get to work with him, whether it was the mask with that element of horror with the smile. That was something that we worked on for a really long time in terms of how to construct it. The character of Basil was someone that I said, I want to do this with a guy in a suit like the old days. I don't want this to be a CGI character. What do you think? How can we execute it? And he worked so hard for months on creating the design of that character, making that character work. The droid Pip was so much fun to work with. Amandla would joke that it was like a little Mercedes-Benz in her pocket because every time she was done with a take, they would come and take it from her because it was so it was remote controlled by a puppeteer who was excellent and actually worked with Amandla in rehearsals so that the character felt very much like, so that the droid felt very much like a character. So yeah, Neil was instrumental in all of that.
Dan?
Hi there, Dan Zehr from Coffee with Kenobi. Looking forward to seeing what everyone thinks about the Acolyte, as I'm sure you are. And now this question, I don't want to spoil anything, so bear with me. What can you share about May's mission to kill Jedi without the use of a lightsaber? Because it is a unique fighting choice. What inspired that decision creatively?
The choice for May to attack Jedi without a weapon was to put a new spin on how you would attack a Jedi. Meaning this is a time period where not a lot of people are running around with a lightsaber unless you're a Jedi. And so therefore attacking a Jedi without a weapon would be a daunting task and something that would hopefully intrigue the audience.
Sarah, go ahead.
Hey, this is Sarah with Skywalking Through Neverland, and you talked about all the inspirations of Star Wars that you're trying to involve in this show. Well, music is a huge thing that connects Star Wars, and I just wondered, is there a specific point in the narrative that you directed the composer, Michael Abels, to use any particular Star Wars themes or sounds or instrumentation to further that connection?
I didn't really start out giving any direction to Michael. He's brilliant. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning musician. He obviously worked on Jordan Peele's films, which is how I just, was introduced to him. There was an element in the show that I felt needed to feel like John Williams, but also had to have an eerier, darker edge to it to tie into the tone of the show. Initially, I didn't really give him a lot of direction. It was more once we got into specific cues that I would say I would give certain direction, like this just doesn't feel, very Star Warsy to me. Or he would say, I think this is a really huge moment because a lightsaber is being pulled out, and I would say, yeah, but it's the bad guy pulling out a lightsaber. So, and we would kind of have those really spirited conversations about how to execute or how to support choices that were elements of Star Wars that we've seen before, but be specifically in his perspective and voice and point of view as a composer.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
A huge thank you to Disney and Lucasfilm for allowing me to be a part of the Star Wars fan community roundtable, and a huge thank you to Leslye Headland for talking with all of us to share some of her insights into the Acolyte. Naturally, there is not a lot we can share just yet, because we don't want to spoil anything. And I am really excited to hear what everyone thinks about the Acolyte. I have seen the first 4 episodes, and you can check out my review on coffeewithkenobi.com, and we will certainly be breaking each episode down every week on Coffee with Kenobi. The website is coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. Don't forget to sign up for the Coffee with Kenobi and Mouse Fan Travel Cruise on the Disney Wish, June 16th to the 20th, 2025. Go to coffeewithkenobi.com/DisneyWish for a no-cost, no-obligation quote. And if you're interested, get your name and deposit down so you can join us as cabins continue to sell out. CWK Live is Monday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time at coffeewithkenobi.com/live. You can go to our Facebook group, coffeewithkenobi.com/community, where you can become a member of the CWK Cafe. It's a wonderful place to go for Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions, and a family-friendly, spoiler and drama-free place. A massive, massive thank you and a huge sign of appreciation from me to members of the CWK Alliance. This show, this podcast, this website, everything I do for the show is possible because of the members of the CWK Alliance. Thanks to you, this podcast, CWK Live, event coverage, and so much more comes to life. Find out how you can help the show for as little as $1 a month by joining the CWK Alliance, and you will receive access to CWK Pour-Over, an exclusive weekly audio and video podcast not heard anywhere else. Go to coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance to find out more and to see all of the wonderful videos and audio exclusives there for members of the Alliance. Plus 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. Have a question, comment, or just want to say hello? Email me, danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. You can connect with me on social media and on social media for Coffee with Kenobi, X, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, and TikTok. Give the show a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi or subscribe to Coffee with Kenobi's YouTube channel. You can find over 700 videos, past live shows and events, and this podcast. Please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you like a shirt, laptop sticker, hoodie, or more, go to coffeewithkenobi.com/shop for the Coffee with Kenobi logo designed by the one and only Corey Clubb. And finally, if you need a speaker for an upcoming event, you can book me to come to your school, conference, business, or organization. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me for a virtual cup of coffee. Happy to bring a bonus show to you this week, and I appreciate your time while you are spending it on your commutes, working out, studying for that test, whatever the case may be. It's so nice of you to take time out of your day to talk Star Wars with me. I really appreciate your time and look forward to the next opportunity to talk Star Wars with you. I'm Dan Zehr, reminding you that this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.